Zizaran here. Since Path of Exile's 3.5 Betrayal League is coming out soon, and I know a lot of you guys haven't played Incursion, Bestiary, and possibly Delve, wanted to make a catch-up video for new players to help ease you into all the new content, because all these three leagues are being made core. That means they're going to be part of the regular Path of Exile content, and some of these leagues can be a little complicated, so I wanted to make a video helping you catch up on all these mechanics. Now, some of these things might have changed slightly from the way they were in the leagues, and we won't really know exactly how until like the game's fully out and we're already playing it. So if something's changed, don't sue me. So first off, Bestiary was a league where you meet Einar, this like eccentric dude that wants you to capture beasts for him so he can sacrifice them to do crafting, basically. And the way this worked is that you would get a monster low and then throw a net on it. Realistically, you would throw a net on it and then complain, oh my god, it's already dead, so you didn't throw the net fast enough. Or that you would off-screen the beast that you wanted to capture before you could actually see it. It was pretty frustrating, but after a lot of quality of life changes, it was pretty great in the end. Some of the big changes as well that are coming is that there's no nets anymore. You don't have to do inventory Tetris, you don't have to worry about drops being replaced by nets, which was a big conspiracy theory, but anyway, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that the entire capture process is now automatic. So from what we understand, you will kill a monster, and if it's one of the special beasts, then Einar will just automatically capture it. Nothing that you yourself have to worry about. So this is great, good news for a lot of people that did play Bestiary. And something special about this league is the crafting. Which you could use to either craft on items specifically, or you could use the crafting to access the 3 special boss fights, which I'll go into a little later. Now, some of the noteworthy crafts were, for example, you could easily dupe a 6th link. And the way this worked is that there was one recipe that would split an item. So it would take, for example, say it had 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes, it would put half on one item and half on the other, but it would keep the same base. Now the important thing to realize here is that it keeps the links, so if you did this on a chest, sure, it would, if you had an amazing chest, you wouldn't do this because it could potentially take the life on one chest and the resistances on another, but it would keep the 6th link. So a lot of players use this to dupe, for example, high item level astral plates or Val Regalias, which was really great. It was very accessible, very cheap 6th link stat link. And especially in the start where the beasts were pretty easy to find, they did make them slightly rare. Another recipe that was really good as well was basically an annulment and an exalted orb, if you know what those are, in one. And an example of how this would work, it would be, for example, remove a suffix and add a prefix, or the other way around. So say for a great example of this in use would be if an item had one prefix, 19 life, but 2 perfect suffixes, you could guarantee that the prefix get removed, which was always going to be a bad one, right? And then it would add a good suffix. So you have some really, it's a bit advanced, especially if you're a new player. Sounds very complicated, I know, but very, very advanced and great crafting in Bestiary. And a lot of this might be getting reworked. Depending on how much of a rework and stuff, I'd quite like to make a follow-up video explaining all the new crafting steps and how things have changed and stuff like that. But very, very exciting league with stuff like that. And then you have the 3 big boss fights. So you have, let's see so I don't get it wrong here. You have the Sakawal. It's a very, very easy fight. You fight 2 or 3 minute bosses. They don't do any damage or anything, and the boss itself as well. Very easy. Sadly, it doesn't have any particularly noteworthy items, so it wasn't that great. There is 2 other ones as well. You have Venomous. Venomous is insane, and I was actually the first person to enter this on Hardcore Bestiary, and the first stage went, well, I almost died 3 or 4 times, but other than that it went fairly well, and I DC'd in the second phase, which incidentally might have been a good thing because so many people ended up getting one shot and dead because the damage scaling compared to anything else in the game at the time was so insane. And they did nerf that fairly quickly, but the two things to watch out for, they are fairly rippy still, is it has a molten or magma orb like attack where it'll like bounce. However, for each bounce it'll split, so it'll go 1, 2, 4, 8, and there's overlap as well. So especially when there's like, you know, if there's ever 4 in the same location, if you're standing where 4 is dropping, you're dead. It will like, they all like overlap. It also like has another ability where he like grows out like a spider web that does a large amount of chaos damage. Other than that, its auto attacks aren't too hard, but I would recommend like a lot of chaos resist and a fairly tanky character to do this fight. Venomous does have some nice drops. The gloves are really, really good, especially for like damage over time builds, or for example Righteous Fire if that hasn't gotten nerfed. And the chest is like fairly cool for ES builds. So some interesting loot from there. Then we have Farrell, which is like the highest level boss fight. Not too insane, it's mostly physical damage, so endurance charges or high physical mitigation like Taste of Heat, Battle Flash, stuff like that. Pretty great for the fight. The way it works is you fight him for a while. Once he goes fairly low, he will throw you into an arena or like a gauntlet kind of thing. And you basically have to fight a lot of like white and blue tigers. The loot disappears like at the end, so make sure you loot everything that's important as it drops. I think there's a clip of like Shinra having a Poet's Pen or something, which was fairly expensive at the time. Actually, he wasn't able to loot it because like it froze him and took him back to the main fight. So definitely loot quickly. And yeah, it's fairly good experience and pretty decent fight in general. The important thing about Farrell is that the chest is worth usually an absolute fortune because it has a special ability which is lets you run Aspect of the Cat for free. And other than that, it's a pretty decent chest. So definitely worth looking into. Now in Bestiary, some monsters were a lot rarer than the others, especially the portal beasts, the ones that you would need to actually open the boss fights. They're fairly rare, especially the Farrell one. And the like yellow beasts, so there was like yellow and red ones being the more rare ones and usually the ones for expensive recipes. But there were quite a few special yellow ones that were rare and worth a lot as well. These all seem to be Krakic. So they had like a prefix that would be like Krakic Lurcher. And they were generally the ones used in like the dupe recipes or like the really expensive ones. Item level mattered a lot for the beasts as well. So for example, quite a lot of them as 74 Krakic Lurcher couldn't be used. However, 75 was what you needed for the recipe. So they would be worth quite a lot. So that is some of the stuff you have to look out for as well. We do know, however, that Jonathan was on the Bakeless podcast and did say that there is now only going to be one notable beast per recipe. Before there would be up to like 4. This means now that you only need random beasts for the other slots, which a lot less like you need to bother managing, which is really nice. So next up is Incursion, which is this league where you meet a crazy Time Lord, Alva, and she wants to send you back in time to basically create your own dungeon. And very, very cool league. Happy it's part of the main game. And the way this worked is you get to build your own temple from scratch. Some like Incursion rooms would be a blank room where if you kill the top right or the bottom left, it will change it into something else. If the Incursion is already like, for example, a currency room that you're in and it lets you choose, then the bottom left will be to change it to something else and it'll tell you what it'll like change to, and the top right will always be to upgrade the room you're in. So very, very cool mechanic. We generally upgraded, for example, the wealth rooms, you know, they drop currency, map rooms, everybody wants more maps, right? And then you have like the corruption chamber, which at tier 3, and it doesn't do anything at 1 or 2 except negative stuff for the temple, it makes minus resistances. But at level 3, it lets you double corrupt an item, which was probably the most sought after thing. For example, you could get a Tabula Rasa with +1 all gems and +2 to trap and mine gems, for example. So a lot of cool combinations there. However, the downside is that it could completely destroy your item. And yeah, it made for a lot of fun YouTube clips. So a very, very cool league. Now, a very normal thing to happen in Incursion was that you enter and you're really excited to check this out and you instantly get one shot because of all the chaos constructs that are like ringed up around you. Normally what would happen is the player would have a golem and your golem doesn't get sort of any like protection once it's entered. So all the chaos constructs will instantly start firing at you. Or especially the first time this is happening, you're gonna panic because you think they're attacking you. So you start moving. You were safe just by standing still, but now that you've moved, you lose your initial protection, and since all the projectiles are mid-air, you have like a wave of projectiles that were intended for your golem, but you're probably standing there now, so you're dead. This actually led to a lot of players like dropping. I didn't use a golem for any character the entire league. Like the entire league, I kept having people asking like, "Sis, why aren't you using a golem?" And I don't want my character to die. Okay, it's very, very unsafe. Now, I don't know if they've reworked that or not, but I would, when the league starts on your first incursion, be a little bit careful. There's like, it's similar to the ones in Valve Ruins in Act 2, the green ones that like shoot like a whoo, except there will be like 50 to 100 of them around the entrance. So yeah, it was pretty rippy. So, and these do, they do chaos damage, so chaos rest helps, and spell dodge is particularly useful as well. So once you have done 11 temple incursions, you have like full access to the temple, and hopefully you've built this beautiful temple with a tier 3 corruption room, tier 3 map room, and a good path to the boss, and you're very happy with your temple. Realistically, however, you're going to be stuck at a bunch of tier 2 rooms. You didn't manage to connect it to the boss, and you're really frustrated. But you know, can't get lucky every time. So a problem for me with the league was that I enjoyed the incursions themselves a lot more with the temple. Kind of hoping for a little bit of a rework with that. Some of it was a little frustrating. I mostly felt like upgrading a few rooms to tier 3 and then just rush straight to those and ignore the majority of the temple. The boss in the temple is a oversized Roomba. It's like a big vacuum cleaner that shoots fire. It's particularly easy until level 75, then it starts scaling really hard, and you do kind of want to have a boss killer character, at least on hardcore. A lot of like the mapping only characters kind of start struggling at that point. So it can drop a lot of good stuff though. A lot of the incursion uniques are really, really good, especially Sacrificial Heart is a power amulet which grants like, I think it's like 120, 140 flat elemental damage to anything. Just damage, so it works on heralds too. It's really, really good. And especially great for like leveling spells. I think you can use it level 29, 39, something like that, fairly early. And that upgrades to Surfy's Heart, which was worth around 120 Exile, which is a very, very cool thing to find, very rare as well. And a lot of cool uniques in this league. Incursions themselves as well is affected a lot by magic finds, so quant rarity makes it very easy to find a lot of like uniques and a lot of currency. Something I noticed in Incursion was the unique armor lore weave, for example, was very, very easy to get even on solo self-found because you find so many unique rings just by doing the incursions. When I was playing, when I was grinding like very hard for like pushing high levels and stuff, and I ended up playing like 10 to 12 hours a day, I would get a lore weave every like 2 or 3 days of playing. This was solo self-found, like solo self-found the rings. So very, very good for that. Now, it's slightly changed now. So before incursions would be 1 in every zone. It's not going to be as often now, but when you find Alva, she's going to give you 3 incursions. I don't know if they'll be like right next to each other or just 3 incursions in that map, but they've changed it slightly. Right. Next up is Delve, where you meet this crazy dude called Nico, and he wants to send you out to find all the yellow good stuff to fire up his mining cart. Sadly, you can't take him bowling, however, there is actually a lot of exciting stuff to find in Delve. So there is weapon rooms, armor rooms, even currency rooms, and then you have like Azurite rooms. They're like blue things on your map that will you run around picking up all the Azurite once you finish like the small encounter, and then you can upgrade the mining cart, you can upgrade your darkness resistance, the amount of flares the player can hold and stuff like that. And this is also like a dungeon which is procedurally generated. Every account, I'm guessing per league, will have a different dungeon that you can explore. and it's infinitely to the sides, and also sort of infinitely downwards. There is a cap, but every time we as players get close to the cap, GGD will increase it by another 2,000 or 3,000, which has already happened a few times already. So you don't ever have to worry about running out of content. It does get harder the lower down you get. Once you're at depth around 270, I think, you're at the same level as item level 83 maps, where it caps out at that length. Like, it doesn't get higher item level, it does get harder, and you do start getting some more interesting drops and stuff. And like, yeah, weird stuff happens. Like, somebody saw Argus, like the labyrinth boss was down there as like a special boss randomly. It is pretty cool going deep. I didn't go much further than like 530, I think is what I ended up at in hardcore, and it does get pretty rippy after the 300 mark. Something a lot of us ended up doing, which I'm not a big fan of this and hope it gets changed, was somewhere between like 50 and 100. If you find a sort of long path, there will be like side areas, and like you can find things like the fossils, which I'll explain about in a second, and you'll find wealth boxes. And in these wealth boxes, you can, I think the most I ever had of one small wealth box was 4 Chaos Orbs and 2 Regals. That's a lot of currency just from clicking on one box. However, the weird thing about these is in some of the side areas there will be walls, and as long as you don't destroy that wall, all those mini boxes like fossils and wealth boxes that I was talking about, they will respawn. So you can keep running that same path over and over again without using any sulfite or something. And like, you're in such a low level area, like 50 to 100, that's somewhere like monster level 30 to 50. So none of the monsters pose any threat to you, and you generally can very easily get 75% darkness resistance at this point. Because virtually you can't die, and you can make a crazy amount of currency. Something I hope gets changed, because I was making around 400 chaos an hour, which compared to the rest of the game is fairly unrealistic. So it was an interesting impact on the economy either way, whether you're for and against it. I guess there's no right or wrong way to look at it. This depends what you enjoy doing. I just feel like it sort of lowered the value on the rest of the game, especially since a lot of it was in raw currency as well, not just in the fossils. But it was very interesting. So I'll talk a little bit about the fossils. And like I said, the previous thing might not go to the core game. They might have no respawns in previous areas at all. But that still waits to be seen. And the way the fossils work is that we have these things called resonators. So you have 1, 2, 3 socket resonators. They're very common. Then you have 4 socket resonators, which are fairly rare. I think I only found 11 or 12 the entire league. And they're only behind the walls that cause things not to be respawned. So they are worth exploring the walls. There is also currency chests behind the walls, and unique item boxes as well. They can have very, very expensive stuff in them. So pros and cons either way. And these fossils and resonators, they sort of act as customizable orbs. I will give you some examples of how fossil crafting works now by changing to another screen. So if you look here, this is pewdb.tw. And then, anyway, I'll link this in the description. That's not too important right now. This shows like all the different fossils. So you have, for example, let's use Pristine as a good example. So Pristine is like the life fossils, and the way this works is it gives you more life modifiers and no armor, energy shield, or evasion modifier. You can put this into a 1 socket resonator and then just use that on an item. Or you can like combine this with, for example, a prismatic and metallic in a 3 socket, and you're like custom creating your own currency. Now, it has some similarities with essences, but there is no tier in these. So a pristine fossil found by a level 7 character will be the same as found as one that is level 95. Like, there's no difference in where you find them, and there's no tiers at all. There's some like delve specific rules, and for a while we thought that they only like had a chance to give these. However, it turns out that they have an increased, like, for example, with the life one, it increases the chance of anything that is life related. So for example, life recovery rate, if it's on a shaper or elder item, you know, like anything life related. And this website will actually like start highlighting what it has a bigger chance of. So a very, very useful website, and then you could, for example, throw in with other stuff. And you see that here is an example of it like having significant chance. Now, when it is that color on the website, that means it's, I'd say from what it feels like from personal experience on crafting, feels like 70-80%, maybe higher, that this is going to be there. This was particularly useful when crafting stat sticks, which from news on the PoE Reddit, I mean, GGG posted a picture where one of the characters was called Rip Stat Sticks, so it sounds like they're getting nerfed. But either way, like, there was a lot of really useful crafting with these combinations, especially with, like, for example, you can block out, let's look at the Scorched one blocks out cold, and like the metallic one blocks out physical, so you could choose and make some very interesting combos where you, there's a few like quiver crafting ones where you can very, very easily get +1 quivers. So a very cool crafting system. It's also a lot more easy to learn and stuff as a new player compared to something, for example, like Bestiary, which was very, very complicated. Again, like an example here is, say you're just like using a pristine, then this is a delve prefix. So you can get 25 to 40 life and 3 to 5% life, right? That's the delve specific prefix, and this can only be obtained by a pristine fossil. This isn't something you can normally roll on either a shaper chest or something you can roll on a normal chest. However, it does stack with the normal one. So what that means is you can do, you can get the, this, so 40 life here, and if you have a high enough item level chest, like 86, you can get 129 here, so then you're up to like 180 life basically, 190. And then you can also get like there's a hybrid roll as well. I don't know why it isn't showing right now. Oh, right. Okay. You can't get that because it's armor. But you could actually exalt that afterwards. Because because this is armor, it blocks it out from the initial crafting. But again, very, very cool. Allowed for a lot of strong rares. And a lot of the like delve specific mods like I showed were very interesting and cool to craft with. Very, very fun league in general. It'd be interesting to see what gets like chosen and what doesn't. I think that was like the majority of stuff I wanted to talk about. But if you have any questions, you can always drop by my stream. I'll try to like put out some like new videos when we like know for sure what's gonna happen as well. I just wanted to make a episode for people that haven't played the previous leagues to catch up, since there's obviously going to be a lot of information to absorb, and hopefully I managed to cover most of it. I know when you know something a lot yourself, it's very easy to take things for granted, but hopefully I covered a good amount of stuff. So my name is Zizaran, hope you enjoyed the video. I stream on twitch.tv every day. In December, I'm going to try to stream for 500 hours, so I'll probably be online all the time. Come say hi. Thanks for watching. Try to die less than I do.